Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower of Author Magazine, and we're here at Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park with Jane Porter, author of The Good Woman. Jane, welcome to Author.
It's good to be here.
Jane, I know you began your long and prolific writing career deep in the genres, in romance, and you wrote a dozen books before publishing your first, what I guess you would call mainstream novel.
Right.
How many was it?
I probably around 12 to 15 in there. I just knew by the time I think the book came out, there's probably around 12. What am I saying? But it was around, I'd written, and the plan hadn't been to break off for years. I had a plan, but after doing enough genre writing, I realized I needed to say something else.
What did the genres teach you? I was talking to Megan Chance, who did the same thing. She started in romance and then moved on to historical fiction, and she really felt it taught her a lot.
I love it. I loved it. I still actually write there because it's a different market, and I love being able to craft kind of a fairy tale for readers.
Right.
But I think it gave me my writing chops. It's a discipline. You know, it's commercial, it's on deadline, they want a bunch.
2 a year? 3
I was doing 4.
Oh!
So I went quickly from 2 to 3 within 1 year, and then 4 for several years.
There's no time to question yourself.
No. I think in the word length, I find that you throw a bunch on the wall, and then it comes back down. For everything for me, it's revision. You're pulling off all the words you don't need. Anything that's, the story that doesn't fit that story, you're pruning. So I tend to overwrite with all my writing, and then I start going back through and saying, what's the juiciest part, or what's the truth, or where's the part that's got the most power, and then I focus in there.
And you trust that that voice in you that knows the good and the juicy. You feel it's pretty trustworthy. And
it's getting there. I think there's times what I have to do is step away from the computer part and read like a reader. Literally leave computer, print off, read in a chair, and read at least minimum 25 pages at a time. I'll read 50, 100, 150. And then as you read, you can feel the flow of a story. And so what I tend to do, so I don't stop the reading, I'll write in the margins, good. Or if there's a problem, I'm like, oh, and I'll say that, question mark, or edit here. And then, if I get really hung up, I'll just do line after line, and then I'll say fix. Like, these 5 pages don't work.
Right.
So I start using the reader part of me. And I can feel it. There's parts I'll smile in every time. There's parts where some parts I'll tear up in because I think I've got the motion right. But I really have to separate that from being in the middle of the writing.
We were talking about the messiness of life, and one of the reasons you felt, I think, that you needed to move into writing women's fiction is you wanted to write about that quality of life, the uncertainty, the danger, and happiness, and all the rest. Can you talk about that?
I was looking at some authors, and I think they start out a story, and they're going to say, especially if you're writing fiction, mainstream fiction, women's fiction, and they have a woman on a journey who's at a turning point in her life, and something bad's going to happen, and with everyone, though, I don't have 100% how I know it's going to turn out. I don't know when I start if it's going to be okay in the sense that readers want to all say it's okay. I don't know that's going to be okay in the sense that anyone can say it's okay, except for hopefully the protagonist at the end has to come to peace or terms with it herself, whatever that is. And I think that for me, because that is real life, when we are confronted by change or conflict, eventually everything will be okay, but what does that mean?
Don't you feel, for my own life, I always feel like so much of it is discovering how it already was okay. That it was okay, but I couldn't see it. And that my journey for myself is learning to see.
I think there's a lot of times it's learning to see, it's learning to accept, it's learning that what we might see as flawed that's just life is flawed. Those messy pieces, it was never really this holistic pretty of magazines and photographs. Life isn't a still photograph.
No.
It looks good, and we see snapshots of what we think pretty is, or peaceful, or excellent, or successful. But if you think about it, it's nothing stagnant. It's constantly going to be in flux and change. And I think my biggest thing is learning for me, and then also I love to convey this in stories, is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
It's just what Lisa Gardner said. a writer's job is.
Oh, yeah?
To become comfortable with being uncomfortable, your exact words.
I think that's what all of our job in life is. Because if we can be comfortable with uncomfortable, I think we can allow a lot of things to be, and we don't have to change or fix. It can just be.
Life has a happy ending. We just don't, there just happens to be death in it, but that doesn't mean it's
But
not
don't
happy.
you think happiness, we do view it as kind of the anti-intellectual? It's for lightweights.
Of
People
course.
who are pursuing or choosing happy, there's something wrong with them.
Yes.
They're just not smart enough to
Oh,
know you will
please,
never
Jane,
be
I read some friend of mine post who's a very bright guy, but also an unhappy guy, and he said that unhappiness was a sign of intelligence. And I was like, oh, God help me.
Well, that's what I said years ago. I said, I'm going to be a lighter writer then. I'm going to be the anti-intellectual writer. I'm not the smart girl writer. Because
Right.
I don't want to be the depressed, really intelligent writer who's going to end darkly. I'm
Right.
raising kids. I have people I love in my world. I'm not going to have this one life and then disappear and have everybody who knew me affected by the darkness of Jane.
Right.
What kind of, that for me, I would rather my legacy be that I encourage people and I supported people and I love people than it be that I'm a great literary person that has such sadness that's surrounding
It's
me.
an unfortunate thing with literature, which is in my life, what we call literature, which has really been a great source of pleasure for me, but there is a pronounced strain within it of a kind of angst, and that's celebrating angst, really. I think romanticizing it in a way, and I think that it does a disservice to the people who have some good stories to tell otherwise. What did you learn, writing The Good Woman that you're going to take to your next book?
I think it freed me up from years of doing books where I did feel, again, boxed in. I needed to deliver a happy ending, couldn't go too dark, couldn't go too gritty. I needed to be light and kind of amusing. And I kind of gave up trying to be light. I mean, I like moments of light, but I think you can be very effective with light with also having some real dark.
I think you have to have it. You need the contrast, or else what does it mean?
How do you deal with this bad things that happen in our society and get the nuances and the voices, and would my readers, how would they respond to me exposing something that they really generally don't want in
But
my
you know,
books?
it's good to bring it up, I think, to write about it, because it's no good to be afraid of it. Because the fact is, Oprah Winfrey, no one would have wanted her childhood. Nobody, you know. And she's a dramatic example, but you've got to address it so that people aren't afraid of everything that could happen. Yes, you can marry an abusive man, but it doesn't, you can come through that. You can have violence, you can have death. You can come through anything.
Well, I think, and I would have a hard time when The Good Daughter's out to do a lot of articles and speaking, but I've lived with domestic violence.
Right.
And I, at one point, thought, how would I ever write about this? And people think, no, it can only happen with certain people. But I really wanted to, in the end, I wrote it from the way I had perceived. I was a little bit older, but I saw it as, you know, a late teenager. And when it's happening, you know, to watch it and be a witness to it is very different from it happening as well to you. But I thought, you know, I'm going to start going to the places I want to write about, and, you know, maybe I'll gain some new readers, maybe I'll lose some readers, but I have to write about what I think is true and important.
You absolutely do, because it's not for you to say you don't know what's going to happen, but you know you've got to write your best book. So I'd like you to finish this sentence for me. If writing has taught me anything, it has taught me what?
It's taught me so many things. It's taught me to love myself.
It has.
It's taught me I'm
How did
amazing.
it do that?
Because it's so hard, and it's so revealing, and it's public.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a writer, for most of us, instead of writing in your attic for yourself, but if you want to take it public, you have to stand up and take it. You're naked a lot, and there's nobody who's going to run around and throw a little cloak around you. I've realized I've got some balls. I've got stuff to say. I mean, it really taught me I was valuable, and that's why I'm always encouraging kids to write, people to write. I think writing gives you a voice. It really does. Even if you're not going to ever be big on a New York Times list, what I've learned too is we need all the voices and all the stories.